Hello and welcome back to the Book of Vinzer, Flinn, everybody. We're nearing the end of the season with Book of Boba Fett, and the crew is going to talk about Chapter 6 today with some predictions for the final this week. After the crew lounge, I'll read a few predictions from some friends of ours, too. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this time of year is kind of hard for me mental health-wise. We're in that interminable part of winter that is just cold and dark and nothing much is going on. Add on to that Valentine's Day, which is total bullshit anyway. It sucks when you're single, it can be a lot of pressure when you're not. Rain and I got a 120 milligram bag of THC taco mix, so that's what we're doing. Talk about knowing you found the one. I mean, depression is bad enough. Layer on that with seasonal depression and the never-ending pandemic depression, and it's a lot, man. So again, the message here is, it ain't just you. We're all having a hard time right now. I mentioned to Raina that right now is especially hard because there's not a lot to look forward to in the terms of things like get-togethers or conventions or parties or anything that's going to fill up that social meter a bit. The annual Flinn summer vacation is still ages away if it happens at all this year, and no one knows of LitCons at all, so it feels kind of bleak in the early, dark, shitty February. But the sun will come out again, and we'll get our lives back. Well, I mean, for the most part, there's a pretty sizable chunk of the population I'm good having fuck all to do with anymore. I'm not going to give the dipshits in the news this week any more attention, but I will say, if you're going to go around honking your way to new levels of ignorance because you love the attention, maybe don't drive in circles around a children's hospital, you fucking clown parade. I gotta quote my buddy Apollo Flynn when he said, "I can't be polite to idiots." Okay, that's enough of my ranting. Let's head down to the crew lounge and talk some Star Wars. Last week we called the episode Fan Service the Episode, so I proposed for this one Fan Service the Sequel, but Courtney came up with a much better title of The Fan Service Strikes Back.
Yep, or Fan Service Mark II.
Oh my god.
Nah, I like Strikes Back.
2.
Where the hell do we start? Well, I got notes in a general occurrence of how it happened. So, well, the first I got all the titles. From the Desert Comes a Stranger. And honestly, when I saw that, I was fully expecting it to be Kick-Ass Tusken Warrior.
See, I thought it was going to be Cobb Vanth based on the first scene of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I'm so happy to see him again. He's so good.
Lord of the Dune Sea.
He
looks so thin.
I don't think he's dead. Man. We'll get to that, but I don't think he's dead based on
I don't think he's dead either. No. He's just...
That's why we had extra deputy for the dead, I think.
Yeah, totally. But what I loved about this one is that it's like Star Wars is supposed to be in its original form a frontier western show, and for a second I took myself out of the space opera and looked at it just through the lens of a western that just happened to be a weird sci-fi, and it was really working for me. It was really cool.
It was very it was just missing western music.
It kind of had. I have a note that says Western music. It kind of had it a little, but yeah.
It was Western Star Wars, I guess, music. I guess is what it was. But had they played like that sort of thing, with except for the aliens, obviously. But if you just saw like the human people in it throughout, you'd not have known that wasn't a Western.
I felt like it had like a Tombstone vibe. Like it was dark.
Yeah, I can see it.
Well, the High Noon Duel at the end of the episode, they ratcheted the tension up to 11. I was like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen?
They did the twitchy fingers.
It was very Western, and I noticed that because there was a similar duel between Mando and the other guy back in season 2, the Ahsoka episode of Mando, right? They had that gunfight in the middle of that town. I just kind of noticed that, George Lucas's original inspiration is like old samurai movies and probably some old Western stuff as well, right?
So like Westerns, I think.
But we never really saw that kind of pistol duel in the original trilogy or any of the Star Wars really set today. Like we saw Han versus Greedo, but they're not staring down tumbleweed town with their hands on their blasters. They're sitting in a booth. So before this, we never really got to see like a proper spaghetti western gunslinger fight. So it was really cool to see twice because we see kind of Cobb kind of do it at the start with the Pikes as well.
I'm a big Timothy Oliphant fan, and every time he spoke, and he's doing the Marshall character, I'm a huge Deadwood fan, and he played the Marshall in that too, Seth Bullock. So it was a lot of fun for the Deadwood fan of me to see him doing that again.
Some of the Pikes are reasonable, some of the Pikes are not reasonable, and they die. And then he kicks over what must be like 1 million credits worth of spice.
That's why you never really get a look at spice in Star Wars very often, do we? What it actually looks like, just like a big bag of cinnamon.
Pretty much. I mean, we don't. I'm just trying to think. When in Clone Wars with the Martinez sisters, they go to Kessel, and we don't. They jettison the crates into space, but I don't think we see them like.
Yeah, I don't think
open
so.
them. Solo, we don't really see any spice either because they go to Kessel. Yeah, this might have been like the actual like shy of, I guess, the Tuscans like putting like a pinch of it up his nose so that the lizard will go up his nose and give him the fever dream. Yeah, that might be the first time we've actually seen spice like actually depicted.
And in one of the early episodes, Fett called it Sansana spice, and I think that's the first time that I can remember hearing it actually having a name. What if it is just cinnamon? People are just like wanting it for their pancakes and shit, but people are addicted to it in Star Wars.
Well, spice has medicinal properties too, doesn't it? Like, don't they make stims and stuff out of spice?
Well,
Like it has legitimate medical properties, which is presumably why the Empire and the Republic bothered to mine it at all. But it also
most drugs do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll look at our resident pharmacology expert there and be like, most drugs are also medicine. It just depends on the dose.
And then if you're doing them with a prescription or not, I guess.
So we flip after the Pike Showdown. We flip back to Din, and I'm actually surprised we got. Well, I mean, obviously everything about this episode was fucking surprising, but I didn't think we'd get to see Din, much less get to see the construction of the temple and R2 showing up, which was amazing.
Cameo, the episode. If any of our valued listeners remember last week, I was like, where will Mandalorian Season 3 start? Is it going to be this cutaway to him going to visit Grogu? And then episode 6 of Boba Fett would just start after he comes back, but clearly not. So we get to go off to wherever that planet was. I don't think it's been named yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I meant to look that up and I completely forgot to. I imagine it's in the canon somewhere because it was in the movie, right? So they would have named it.
Yeah. So I don't. They definitely didn't have like a planet name title card as Din comes into the system.
Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker revealed that the training was conducted on a jungle planet, Ajan Klas, a world whose existence had been kept secret by the Alderaan royal family.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Today I learned.
Oh, cool. That's neat then.
Yeah, we actually saw training take place, which I didn't expect to see. Quite a bit of it, really. He was a bit of a show-off, I thought.
We finally get to see Grogu, which was fun.
Well, the one-eyed frogs. I'm like, is that nice to do? He's like, you tell him he can't have one frog, and then you're like, look, I can do all the frogs. Like,
look what you could do with the Force. You could levitate all the frogs. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
The look was really convincing. The CGI is definitely taken a step up, even since the last Mando episode where we saw him. It was eerie convincing.
So after the last episode of The Mandalorian came out, some guy on YouTube who had a VFX background redid the digital whatever for that scene and made it look a lot better. And Disney just outright hired the guy.
That's great.
But the thing is, did you know that the voice is also deepfake?
I heard Mark Hamill recorded it, but they digitally like de-aged it.
The thing I read after this episode, because I thought that's what it was too, that they just get him to do the voice and then they would like kind of take the growl out that your voice gets as you're older.
Oh, really? Okay, I read.
But no, even Mando apparently, which is why people found it flat. Yeah, I'll double check that, but I thought that I read it was also Mando.
Physically there.
They said that for this one they took it like essentially doing like the bad ransom stuff, where you take like people's words they say in different places and they put it all together, and everybody thought that was very weird because obviously Mark Hamill does a great deal of voiceover work, and so whether it was he wasn't available or
so not only did actor and voice artist Graham Hamilton take on the role of Luke's motion capture character with the help of some deepfake technology, but his voice was created with the help of a program called Lola.
That's it.
Here's the question that we talked about, I think, last episode, right? How ethical is this? How ethical is it to have somebody's face and voice in some kind of motion picture or whatever, but yet not have that person paid for, recognized of, like, presumably Mark Hamill made no money off of his likeness and voice being used. I mean, I have no idea. I didn't actually check the credits to see if Mark Hamill is referenced anywhere in there, but like,
I wonder if he gets like paid for the likeness. I don't know. Like he must, like Harrison Ford's still getting a check every time they use Han's face on something, right? Like, so, you know, they.
I don't know.
I
don't know. Hey man, somebody has already said that somebody saw somewhere that Han Solo is credited in the 7th episode. So whether that happens or not, I have no idea. But if they can digitally, if they can literally deep fake Luke and voice included and not have Mark Hamill there at all, there is no reason why they couldn't do that for Han, for Leia, for Lando, a whole shebang, right? I don't know if there's a legal precedent for it or not yet.
So Mark Hamill is still credited for the role. Only this time around, Lucasfilm cast a different actor who served as Luke's performance artist. So that's how they did it. So they still credit Mark Hamill for the role, so he still gets for this.
Okay. Because I'm thinking too, when that new Avengers game came out a couple of years ago, everybody complained that the Avengers didn't look like their MCU counterparts. And the explanation was that Sony doesn't own their likeness, right? They own the character, they don't own the rights to Mark or to RDJ's face, right? So like, you can make Tony Stark the character as like a white guy with a goatee with a pattern cut into it or whatever, but they don't own RDJ's likeness.
I wonder if like Mark Hamill is he's like obviously a pretty good team player for Star Wars even after all this time in a way that Harrison Ford's not. So you got to wonder if just Favreau or Filoni called him up and says, here's the plan, you know, are you cool with this kind of thing? And like, we're doing it, but are you okay with it? I wonder.
It's the same thing with any, like a Disney princess, for example, right? Like Snow White exists. And you can be Snow White look in a zillion different ways. It's when you are Snow White that looks like the Disney cartoon. So it's Disney's copyright version of Snow White that you can't be. He was in a hotel and couldn't watch. This hotel didn't have Disney Plus.
Oh, imagine that. Luke Skywalker, you can't watch your show. Oh, I remember that tweet now. I would have called the fucking front desk as the joke. You better get this sorted out right now.
#recklessly Fett _less.
Yeah, he was sad.
I mean, bring a Chromecast with you.
I was gonna say, that's why you bring your Chromecast.
The one thing that did help though is that most of the time when Luke was speaking, they cut away from his face. Like the camera would be like start on Luke when he starts to talk, and then he would finish the back 3/4 of the sentence with the camera on his back, like or on Grogu, that type of thing. I mean, yeah, there was the back and forth there with Ahsoka, but I found that they cut away from his face when he was actually talking, which probably really helped.
Thinking the mouth up, right? Like it's.
The human eye can always tell. However, I said earlier how crazy accurate it was, but the human eye can always tell.
Yeah.
Uncanny Valley is a thing. So now, if they've got this all set up, why can't we not have a Filoni versus Luke's Jedi Academy? Like, why couldn't we do this?
We clearly can. I mean, Luke wouldn't even have to be it that much, you know. You just have it'd be the stories of the students, and you know maybe Luke's there every little bit or something. I'd watch that.
We have the technology.
Oh man, old man Skywalker's gonna catch us.
He could be like a Dumbledore, you know, like the headmaster, and then there could be like instructors. Like
so, the other week we Christ, you said correctly that how Grogu wasn't much more than a prop, but after this last episode, seeing those blasters in his eye reflections, he is now a character with trauma. You know, like he's I think Grogu and the choice he has to make that we're cliffhangered on. He's more of a character to me now, but mostly because of that Order 66 stuff. It was really well done, but disturbing.
Do you think he wiped out those stormtroopers?
Do you think Grogu did? Oh, that's a good question. Maybe he had to.
I think he did. And I think that's when he stopped using the Force.
Or I don't know.
Yeah.
We didn't see the trauma long enough. So because we still have to figure out how did he get out of the temple at all.
Yeah, the question of who saved him is still open. Oh, I think there was someone said Jocasta knew, the librarian might have, but I don't know if that's confirmed or just a fan rumor.
I don't think so, but she did survive Order 66.
Yeah.
Jocasta did successfully flee with her 2 assistants. She just gets killed by Vader later in the comics.
Yeah.
Trying to save a holocron that has a bunch of sensitive kids on it.
I read that issue. It was really good. Her character is really cool in that.
Who knows? I don't know. I think they'll keep that part of mystery because, I mean, leave it to Dave to have a Clone Wars reference inside, a bunch of Clone Wars references in the Dave Filoni episode, because that was the Dave Filoni episode. So we got Clone Wars, Ahsoka, and Cad Bane all in the same episode. But it was cool to see that scene from like POV your Grogu in his cradle or whatever he walked around in at the temple, right? You see the 3 Padawans defending, and then the clones come up. I don't know. Maybe he mind tricked the clones into leaving, or so. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see it.
He killed
I don't
them.
know. I don't know if it's better that it's left a mystery than to explain the mystery.
I think you're right, Merritt. I think he was forced to kill them, and he blocked himself out.
Yeah, and that's why. Like, I think that was the first time he actually like used the full strength of his force. And
But I find killing people is Grogu's like first reaction. Like he tries to, like
he's a baby. He does not know his own strength.
he's 50 years old. He's not a baby.
He's a baby.
He tried to kill Gina Carano's character.
Good.
He tried
Well,
to
now we know he should have. Just saying.
So yeah, the training montage with Luke were cool. It was really cool to see Grogu. I don't know. I still think Grogu is better served as a puppet, but I can see why they had to switch to CGI when he's jumping around, dodging the blaster bolts from the training sphere. That was really cool.
How about how Luke was helping him walk, doing the gentle little force lifts? That was an interesting way.
That was so cute because it's like Luke would walk 2 steps, Grogu's like me, and he's like just floats him ahead like 6 feet.
It's a nice touch. I
was
like that.
I thought it was cool that Luke still has the backpack that he carried Yoda around in.
Oh, so many parallels in this. I loved it.
And then we finally got a scene that Star Wars fans have been asking for years. We got to see Ahsoka and Luke in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Refers to herself as an old friend of the family. We can't imagine how she's looking at Luke through like her eyes after the journey we've been on with Ahsoka with one that Rain is actually just about to start with me. It's going to be so cool to see her perspective on it.
Fair warning, she starts off annoying, but that's by design.
Yeah, stick with it.
In my theory, every single young Jedi, with the exception of maybe Grogu, but he can't really talk, so that's probably why, ends up to be as annoying as fuck. Luke is, Anakin is, Ahsoka is, they just are.
Well,
It's like, they just
if
are.
you think about it, you're like a 12 or 13-year-old kid with superpowers and a laser sword. I'd probably be an annoying shit too.
I think your character is, though. You were.
I will levitate you somewhere, unfortunately.
Just saying. Oh, look, he's stolen something again. Oh, good.
I pay for a lot of things.
I'll be in my ship.
We mentioned last time how we wondered, or one of the times that we wondered if Grogu was going to speak normally or speak like Yoda, and Luke actually raises the point about the way Yoda spoke, so that's how he spoke in riddles.
Did he remember other people on his planet speaking like that? Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
cool.
like, don't give him back the memories. It'll mess up his speech pattern.
Right? It's like, am I supposed to talk like this? Like, I don't know. It was good to see him. I gotta say, as much as this was fan service too, Electric Boogaloo, I'm just like
It was good fan service.
It was good, but I kind of wanted to get back to Boba Fett a little bit.
And that brings me to a point that our own Clan Flynn member, Mr. Flynnman, made the other day. We have a spoiler chat in our Flynn Discord, and when you go in there, it's all bets are off. But he made a point of saying he was pissed off almost that we spent so much time. He's like, oh, this is great and everything, but I want to get back to Boba Fett. And that's one of the few times I've heard an opinion that wasn't gushing over this episode or the one before it. And Flynn was saying, yeah, let's get back to the story here.
Yeah. I'm really torn because, like, on one hand, watching it, I'm like, oh my god, it's so cool. They're so and so. They're talking. They're doing the thing. Like, I mean, you know how I love Ahsoka, so like that was exciting for me to see Ahsoka again and like all of that. And I am not. I like Grogu, but I am not on the Grogu, train as much as some people are. But like, it was cool seeing the story. It's like I'm an X-Files fan from way back, and you have the X-Files story. And they always had what they called the myth arc that ran throughout the season, but then they would stop it with some Monster of the Week episodes in between. And you'd always be frustrated because you'd be following the story, and all of a sudden nobody would refer to the story at all. It would just be like another thing. And I kind of had a little bit of that going on.
I think it would have been cool if we kept it only from Din's point of view. Like, he goes up to see, and you can see them in the distance, but you don't actually see any of that part. And he leaves the gift, and then that kind of stuff, and then save like that perspective for maybe like an after credits spoiler thing, like where he gets him to choose just the gift part. And then when we get into the Mandalorian season, you actually see that training and stuff. I feel like that maybe, depending on what they're planning for Mandalorian season 3, I feel like that might have been a better flow.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it would have annoyed me less.
It would have saved a bunch of runtime that could have been back on Tatooine, advancing like the Boba Fett part of this. Like I agree with Raina that he gets to whatever the planet's called. R2's like, they're not here. Please wait. Ahsoka's like, do you really need to see him? Is that going to be good for you? And like
that hurt my heart a little bit.
Oh, same.
Because we did have that. We see him off in the distance scene there. And they could have just ended on that, and then Din flies back to Tatooine, and we didn't need all the Luke and Grogu stuff because we could have saved that for Mandalorian season 3.
I honestly thought they were. Like, I thought when he saw the ship take off, that was what we were going to see, and then it was going to carry on.
I said to Raina, I was like, what are we... that's nice that we're back here, but why are we back here?
Yeah.
You know why? To give us a cliffhanger to chew over for months.
Last episode, at least we had the payoff of why that kind of had to happen. Like, yes, I think we actually needed to understand where that ship came from instead of waiting till Mandalorian season 3. Could have done a little bit without the extra nutty professor in the garage there, but whatever. And then, like, so it paid off because then Fennec came right in at the end, and it made sense. This didn't have that same payoff at the end of the episode where you go...
Way more setup, yeah.
I think it's a setup for him to actually be a Jedi Mandalorian, like Tar Vizsla.
I think so, too.
Yeah, and I definitely agree, which is why I think it should have been, like, that whole Luke making him have a choice could have been the spoiler at the end of the season finale or something, like an after credits scene. Yeah, the after credits scene. Like, they just put it in at the end. And then you get that cliffhanger, and that's kind of your last thought when you're like, oh man. But
because now we have to chew on that for the next 10 months.
For a lot of people, they don't know. I mean, they did do the whole, they gave a little tiny Tar Vizsla backstory, like the armorer did, like a little bit. So, but for most people, for the non-Star Wars fanatical people that are watching, they are like that. Was like, yay Grogu, oh how mean. Like, I talked to friends online about it. It's like, that was so mean making him choose. And I'm like, I think he's not gonna choose. I think that's the whole thing,
The thing is, though, even if Grogu straight up chooses to go back to the Mandalorians, the thing is, when he's got more training now, and those force flips, he's never going to be a helpless character again. Like, that combined with what he's unlocked about his past. So it's like, it's gonna be like, Grogu run. He's gonna be like, they'll never catch this little fucker again. You know what I mean?
The whole thing, right, is like, you can be a Force user without being a Jedi, and you don't have to be a Jedi or a Sith. Like, there's a whole lot in between, right?
He's more powerful now than he was already, so even if he left, he's at an advantage.
We kind of brought up the point when we were discussing that whole choice thing before. It was Luke wants to make sure that attachment is gone 100%, because he doesn't want Grogu to have that attachment, because attachment can lead to blah 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 dark side. So he wants to make sure that he's making that decision, and if he chooses Mandalorian, then he's like, okay, the attachment is too strong, this is dangerous, I don't want you any stronger and trained.
See, That's my thing. That whole choice thing, that whole refusal of attachment, that whole thing has fucked up more stuff than letting people have both in the end. Because Anakin went off the fucking deep end, obviously, right? As a result of like his feelings for Padme and then all of the stuff. I'm like, Jedis can't do the thing. And I mean, Obi-Wan would have been a much happier man had he been able to be with Satine.
It's surprising to me that Ahsoka's there, if not encouraging it, but going along with it. Because if there's anybody who has proven that the rigid Jedi will fuck you over, it's Ahsoka, right? Like,
right? And she knows. Like she was like, no, thank you. I think you're all hypocrites. I'm out.
My next thing in my list of notes here is that fucking Jawa sandcrawler riding around with the very symbol of Clan Flinn strapped to its hood.
Right.
That was great. Those are our Jawas.
Call the lawyer again.
I know, right? They're ignoring me.
Oh, before that scene, we get the only 15 seconds of Boba we've gotten in the last 2 episodes of content, and that now they're like, now that we have the muscle, we've added one person to our crew, but now, and Chrysanthemum looks offended that they didn't have enough muscle before the Mandalorian shows up, and I'm like, all right.
Wookiee gladiator and Mandalorian bounty hunter. That's all the muscle you need right there.
And they start talking about foot soldiers, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, Cobb was already in here, so maybe he's going to go recruit Cobb, and he does. And of course, there's the throwaway Marshall.
Who you knew?
Oh yeah, as soon as he tries to mouth off to the Mandalorian, I'm like, oh, you're dying somehow at the end of this episode. You have got to be we need to kill somebody in this village, but it can't be Cobb Vanth because he's too handsome.
Well, this guy is also handsome, but we have to kill someone handsome in the village.
So, one last thing on my list here before we get to the stranger from the desert is the war is the dam is about to break. They blow up the bar. Is Lady Garza dead or alive?
I think she's alive, and now I think she's going to be mad. I think before she would not have been radicalized against the Pikes because she's very much Switzerland. But I think now she's going to be pissed. So
a lot of people were concerned about the fate of Max Rebo, but we checked the playback, and apparently he wasn't on that set.
He's not there.
So Max Rebo lives.
Lives to jizz whale another day.
Like jizz whaling.
Live to jizz.
Get that on a t-shirt.
That can be your Clan Flynn out of context tweet for the night. He lived to jizz whale another day.
Live to jizz.
Sorry, everybody. All right, so I said to Rain, I'm definitely gonna videotape myself for reactions next week because I wish I'd had one on me when the man in the hat walked out of the desert because I think I got up out of the chair a little bit.
I got spoiled for that, so I knew Cad was coming.
I was not,
but that's fine. I don't mind Loki. I'm weird with spoilers. Sometimes if I see spoilers, it just makes me more excited to actually see what it was.
Makes me mad.
Like knowing that Cad I don't remember what it was. I think Juice or somebody posted in spoiler chat before I remembered to meet spoiler chat on Wednesdays.
That's your own fault.
Once I watch the episode, I unmute the chat so I can participate in the spoiler chat, but I forgot to mute it. I'm like, oh fuck yeah. Cad motherfucking Bane's in this episode. I am so excited to see what they do. And what does he look like? Because I'm like, is this going to be bad CG or decent prosthetics or where are we at here?
I thought he looked scary as shit.
As I do, because I'm, that's the ADHD. I'm on my phone. I'm watching TV at the same time because that's how I roll. And so I always am up and down and up and down and up and down. And then I looked up and I saw the silhouette and I'm like, that hat. There is only one person in Star Wars that's wearing that hat.
That hat and that duster. Somebody pointed out Cad Bane is 78 at this point.
I realized the other day that canonically I'm basically the same age as Boba Fett, and he's tired of bounty hunting. He's too old to want to do it. I fucking get that. Bounty hunting's a young man's game, even though he'd still be really good at it. And he's assembled a group of weirdos around him. So I'm like, yeah, I want a lawyer. I want a check.
Well, this is why I was so excited when I actually worked in Upper Bo-Katan, because logically she is probably about my age. Ish. Wibble on either side. I don't think she's in her 60s. I think she's probably more 55-ish, technically, which is really aging up Katie Sackhoff, actually, because she's in her 40s. So
So, what
More
about
power to her back.
Fennec? Do we have an age approximation on Fennec? Did we bother?
Not yet.
I didn't look it up. However, she is in the Bad Batch, which is like
That's fair.
21 BBY. So Clone Wars ends in 22 BBY. So Bad Batch presumably takes place in 22, 21 BBY, and she's not old. She's like in her prime.
They've actually mathed it.
Have they?
They think that since The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 take place in 9 ABY, that would make Fennec Shan's likely birth year 48 BBY, making her 16 years older than her eventual partner Boba Fett. With The Bad Batch Season 1 taking place in 19 BBY, this would make Shan 29 years old in her animated debut.
We were doing timelines because Joni was trying to put stuff in order, and don't understand why the Armorer talks about events the way she does, right? So she talks about like the Purge of Mandalore, all right? So if we take like Rebels Season 4 is 1 BBY, right? And that's when Sabine gives Bo-Katan the Darksaber and presumably starts Mandalore's rebellion. So from 1 BBY until 4 ABY, when the Empire is defeated, in theory, the sack of Mandalore is somewhere in that 5-year period, right?
Right.
That's only 5 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Din is like canonically 33 to 36 years old. Like he would have been in his 20s when the sacking of Mandalore happened. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why the Armorer talks about it like it was this event that was like forever ago.
Well, one, I think the armor is a little nuts, but
It's true.
the thing about having a big unified canon on the scale of Star Wars or Star Trek is you got so many writers, and very often you're left to make what another writer left you work. They didn't have to think this far ahead, right? They want to say Katie Sackhoff's fucking 80 in the show. I don't give a shit. I just don't care.
This is fantasy. It doesn't have to be realistic.
Yeah, I mean, I like a little bit of accuracy too, but like it's not a game breaker for me. You know what I mean? Like
Listen, here's my thing, right? If they can make a movie like The Expendables, which is full of like action stars in their like late 50s, early 60s, or however the fuck old Stallone is these days, they can totally have Fennec Shand at 58 still kicking ass and taking names.
We're not dead. We're
chewing
just
space
in our
bubble gum.
50s.
I'm not
We're not dead. We're not dead.
You're not fooling anyone, you know.
I think I'll go for a walk.
No, you're not. You'll be stoned dead in a minute. I got a note here that says Reyna Twilight. I don't remember the context.
Oh, the training, the running and the CGI and all the stuff
The
through
flipping.
the woods. And
Yes.
like where he throws Grogu up on his shoulder and he's running through the woods. I couldn't stop laughing because I was just picturing Bella Swan just up on Edward's shoulder as he's doing that fake run through the low budget first Twilight movie. It was.
Okay, so the last things on my list are the two big questions. The first of which is, what do we think Grogu will choose?
Both. I think he's going to wield the Darksaber, so I think both.
I think that he's going to choose Mandalorian at first, and then it's something that's going to bring him back around, because I think that Luke's going to let him go originally, but then like Grogu's going to manage somehow by the end of the season maybe to meld the two. Like I feel like it might be a path to that. I don't know if we're going to get that right away, but who knows? We didn't think we were going to get anything of this last episode right away, so what do I know?
So I agree with Reyna, and I think that Grogu will pick the Beskar, if only because I think from a showrunner perspective that Disney needs to get Grogu back with the Mandalorian for Mandalorian Season 3.
He has the dome. It's foreshadowing.
Exactly. There's the little dome, and I can just picture his little ears out of that dome.
Did anybody notice the framing of the shot when Din was getting out of it? It looked like R2 was in the dome. Like, you can't tell me that wasn't intentional.
My thing is, Grogu's the cutesy moneymaker of this franchise right now, right? So, like, at the end of Mandalorian Season 3, or at the end of Mando Season 2, we were all like, how on earth is Din going to get Grogu back for Mando Season 3 if he's off with Luke? Well, here's the answer.
I agree with you guys that I think he's going to choose the Beskar and he's going to go home to his family because he's seen the horror that comes of the fucking path of the Jedi. He's seen it firsthand in front of his eyes. But I think much like Raina said, I think it's going. The Darksaber will somehow be forced upon him, and he will have to return, and he's gonna return to using his force powers, and somehow end up being the fucking Mandalore at some point, which is gonna be crazy.
I think, and when I say both, I guess I don't mean both so much as I think he is going to be a force-wielding Mandalorian more than a Jedi Mandalorian, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think he'll end up. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's going to be there's going to be like a fight, and then he's going to like drop the Darksaber's going to, because we've already had like the armorer saying, you're fighting against that, you're not using it, it's too heavy, you're not like, your mind's not clear and stuff. And I think it's just Grogu's going to grab it and be like with his little tiny self.
Oh, you know what's going to happen is Din's going to get defeated in battle, be hurt really bad, and Grogu's going to take up the sword and defeat that guy and win it and become, he's the king now. The second question being final episode predictions. What do you think's going to happen? How's it going to end?
I think it's going to be a longer than average runtime. I feel like they've got to wrap up a whole war in one episode, so I feel like it might be like an hour. I'm hoping it's like an hour 20 instead of like the 50 minutes that they've been now.
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff to wrap up. I feel like it's just weird that he just would go and do that. I don't know. Also, we need to figure out what happened to what's her face, Jennifer Beals' character.
Yep, and Cobb Vanth, although someone posted a screenshot where Cad Bane's shot hit him in the shoulder, so I'm pretty sure he's still going to be with us.
So here's my thing, though. Ep 7, we're back to Robert Rodriguez as the director.
There we go. This is going to be our Desperado-style payoff.
With Favreau as the writer.
Oh,
Ooh.
Bring it on. Fett's going to use every gadget he's got, plus a Rancor. That's my prediction, is that he's gonna realize his way of respect is not gonna work. He's gonna be like, you only know fear, so I will show you fear, and then he's just gonna tear the whole fucking place apart. Which led me to a weird stretch theory, but the way it ends is that he might succeed and save Tatooine and get the spikes straight off of there, but he might realize, I don't want this. I'm gonna leave and do something else. Maybe he realizes he doesn't want to be a crime lord. Maybe he's like, I'll go with Din. Which brings up a whole other fucking hornet's nest of what the Mandalorians would think of Fett if he showed up.
So I just had a little weird thought one day when I was talking to Ben. We had to stop talking about it because we would have had to repeat everything to each other in this podcast. So there's going to be I kind of wish that there would be a scene, because it would really set this up well at some point in this episode where Boba kind of asks him, what's he doing anyways? And then he's just he kind of brings up that the armorer has banished him as a Mandalorian. And then Boba's just excuse me? So then he kind of sets up to maybe go off and join Din on teaching him, Mandalore or something. Or, showing him, basically helping him on his path somehow. Or going with him to discover that path for, a new path for both of them. I don't know.
We did kind of get a glimpse of what Mandalorians thought of Fett in the bar scene in Mando Season 2, where him and Casca, they got into a fucking scuffle, and he didn't back down, she didn't back down. It was pretty cool. But like I said before, I imagine a lot of Mandalorians do not have a high opinion of the Fett bloodline. My only solid prediction for the last episode is someone's getting fucking eaten by a Rancor. Definitely. Other than that, all bets are off.
Not the mayor. I want something to happen to his assistant guy.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mayor's off-world, so...
No, he wasn't. The mayor is, yes, but his assistant wasn't. His assistant was with them, and they were around the table.
So
yeah.
Maybe Boba hires the Mando to go hunt down the mayor.
I think the overarching kind of theme is going to be that people are standing behind Boba Fett, and I think that's kind of what we're going to see, is that everybody is going to kind of gather together. Let's hold that family thing again. And again, we need the warrior to come out of the desert to help. I'm gonna be.
I know.
So
Loose end. We gotta see her.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about the next episode because as we've seen a couple of times, they've had an issue with pacing. And they've got a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm really wondering if this episode is just going to smack you in the face and be at a breakneck speed for the entire time to get through everything. Or are they going to have peaks and valleys where they have moments of lull and stuff? But
I have to assume, it's awful brave of me, but I have to assume that they had an overarching story for the season when they put this all together, and they had to know that they could do what they wanted to do in one episode when they essentially, I love them, the fan service episodes were amazing, but they could have had those to further the plot if they needed to. So I have to hope, A, that they have enough to wrap this up, B, they do not leave me with a goddamn cliffhanger of like...
They shouldn't, because this was supposed to be a one-off.
And this is Favreau. Like, I think we're in okay hands. Like, I feel like since 2008, I feel like we might be able to trust him a little bit.
Absolute trust. Don't trust him to not give me a cliffhanger.
What if Boba Fett gets killed in the last episode, and then Cobb Vanth steps into his armor and his place and runs Tatooine as the peaceful marshal? Man, I think that's actually a possibility. It's not like they're going to run out of roles for Tamura. He's got to go be filming stuff as Hunter and Rex, right?
I do think it's a lot to have to wrap up in one episode, and then I don't know. I'm just very curious to see how they kind of bring this all, like the last 2 episodes, bring it all in. Like we have to find out that Cobb's not dead. We have to bring in the Freetown people to fight the Pikes. I'm wondering that maybe that now that the Pikes blew up Switzerland, that the other 3 crime families will decide to get involved instead of the neutrality that they promised earlier.
Fett was watching Cobb in Mando season 2, so maybe he'd be like, if that's not gonna make it, he'd be like, I kept an eye on you. You're a good man. You put the armor back on and lead them, or something like that.
Like, I think they could end it on a cliffhanger in that I really think that this is going into The Mandalorian. Like, I don't think... I know it's like a standalone little subsection, but they're all so intertwined that obviously we can see storylines go back and forth, so I don't know.
Maybe he goes and afterwards, it's not that he dies or anything, it's just that his work is done with the Pikes. He is going to go back into the desert, and he goes back to like a Tuscan life.
I could see that. That's a good theory. Well, you know what? At this point, Han Solo might show up in a pair of fucking Speedos. I don't know what's going on anymore.
I mean, I'm there for that.
Okay, you've heard from us. Let's have a few finale predictions from the Peanut Gallery. Peter Foote, our writer pal from the Valley, says musical episode. About half the Flinns are cheering, the other half wants to run in like the father from the Holy Grail and stop everything. Matthew Belfontaine, Maritime Heavy Armor member and Halifax's own Captain America cosplayer, says, Fett, Mando, and the gang are surrounded by the Syndicate. All hope seems lost when a dropship appears. Cargo bay opens up and out drops Grogu riding a mythosaur, wielding the lightsaber and wearing the Beskar chain. I'd watch the shit out of that, although I think mythosaurs are extinct. But there is a Rancor around, though. Maggie says Star Wars Christmas Special, which is like a musical if it drove off the road, trailing your fence and came in through the living room. No. Andrew Conrad, whose photography Jedi powers has made many a Flynn look good, says, with the battle raging on in a turn that no one saw coming, Phoenix Flynn rides out, sitting backwards of course, atop the mighty Rancor. And then... we have my new favorite. And finally, Kevin St. Pierre, Clan Flynn pal and the best Wolverine cosplayer in the business, shared this one. He says he found it and it's not his, but I liked it, so here it is. Cad Bane killed the Tusken Raiders hired by the Pike Syndicate. He's been around Tatooine for a while, is scoping it out on the down low. He kidnaps the Black Cloak Tusken Raider. She will be in the last episode. Cad Bane and maybe another Easter egg like Bossk will be in the final fight with the Pikes. Fight will commence, Boba team getting beat down, Luke shows up with Grogu, they get into the action. Grogu saves Mando with his Beskar. Luke sees this and decides to still train Grogu as a Jedi and change the rules. Kevin also does a great Luke Skywalker cosplay, by the way. We'll see who was on the money soon, and we'll be back to talk about it next week. One last thing, my buddy Raptor Flynn is kicking off his Twitch streaming adventure, so go to Twitch and give him a follow. That's RHAPTYR. If you see dinosaurs, you're in the right place. He's funny as shit, and I'm not just saying that because he has the same 12-year-old level of immature humor I do. That's all for this week, so this is Vinzer Flynn, high as shit at Tashi Station, signing off.